With no further ado, I welcome the fellow panelists of the first panel of the day. Thank you.
Right. Thanks so much, Jordi, for a kind introduction, and good morning, everyone. It's our pleasure to actually open this event, and it feels great that so many of us are joining us. We see some nice view of Barcelona over here, and we are actually going to talk the first session, but we're going to talk about future. So we are going to have a glimpse on how is digital licensing going to work, but we will also chart some current challenges and see maybe how to navigate the digital licensing waters in the near future. So my name is Lucius Klobuchnik. I am actually not a music business professional, but I am a scholar, so I research and write about music rights. I also worked for a while in WIPO at World Intellectual Property Organization, and with me here today are Camille Latorre from Warner Chappell Music. Then we have Edith Sievers from Copyright Power. Welcome, and we also have Clara Ruperes from Telefonica. So welcome to all of you, and I hope you do enjoy this session. So first, we would like to talk about some kind of a current disruptions, perhaps to digital licensing. So, do you see some disruptions coming, particularly from new technologies? Do you feel that there is some kind of a change coming, or do you feel like there is perhaps some disruptions to the embedded practices?
Should I start? Okay. Yeah, I think right now we are in the data time. No, we need to find a way to incorporate all these challenges that we have right now and create some kind of data-driven licensing models which somehow accommodate to the area that we are living right now. So this is, if I should put like a big title there, this will be mine. Then we have generative AI, which is also a big challenge that we have right now, because it doesn't not only affect the way that we consume songs and music, but the way that we create those. So, and this is the big thing that we have right now here, the big challenge.
I mean, jumping in as well quickly, and I feel it's unfair for you to not describe yourself as a music industry professional. It's just, I've seen you at enough of these conferences now to know that you know what you're talking about, and that he's got a real understanding of a lot of how our industry works. I'm, as you said, I'm Camille. I work for Warner Chappell. Warner Chappell is the music publishing arm of Warner Music Group. So Warner Music Group obviously touches on lots of different things, lots of different labels, but music publishing is in respect of the set of the actual song and the composition that underpins the track, as opposed to like the labels who manage the masters and that kind of stuff. So always just helpful setting that out at the beginning in case you have no idea who I actually am. And I work in our digital team, which does licensing with digital service providers around the world. Digital service providers being like your YouTubes, your Spotify's, all the big ones that you could think of. I see some friends from some of those places here today. But also some of the smaller ones, the interesting kind of more agile ones, tech company startups who are coming through, who want to use music rights and want to be involved. And inevitably, that has led to us thinking about how AI is influencing our licensing structures, not only with our existing deals, but also with the new deals that we're having to put in place or trying to create with AI companies that we understand are using our songs as part of their training, as part of the product or platform that they're creating. And so to quickly just kind of touch on each of those, how that works, and I'm going to try and do this at a very high level because I know we're going to dive into it in a bit more detail later, but our existing deals quite typically are done on, some of you might be aware, what known as like a pro rata model. We have like commercial terms that we agree, but ultimately we agree a pot of money, a pool, and then we get paid out on our market share of that pool. So one of the big issues that AI creates as we're thinking about this is, how do we protect the value of our market share if suddenly there's going to be millions and millions and millions of extra tracks that come out? And how is that recognized? How is that a play counted? Is there going to be different levels of value that's given to commercially released music from labels and like publishers and songwriters compared to something that's just AI generated? And the next obvious question from that, as my partners keep telling me, is how do we know what's AI generated? Until there are rules around labeling, until there are rules around actual how you provide the metadata, it's very easy for us to say conceptually this is what we agree, but it's going to be a bit of a Wild West. The other thing in terms of new licensing structures, it's complicated. There are no current fixed ideas around it. You're starting to see some collective licensing ideas that we're going to touch on as well. So yeah, to hand it back to the panel, I think it's really amazing time that we have to not just look about the future, but we also need to reassess everything in our present right now because of the technological changes that are coming.
I would just like to ask to follow us to all of you. So you were also talking about streaming and the shift to digital. So how do you feel that shift is different now, or is it really? So the new technology that's coming in the form of AI. Of course, we all know how hard was it at the start of digital and fan streaming to get the license deals together. Can you draw some?
I think you have to differentiate two types of AI. No, Camille was talking about generative AI. You have the general AI, AI that we have been using for years, that personalizes. I don't know if you say that in English. That affects the way that we consume the music, no, or the copyrighted works. It's more personalization, the way you can find the music. So this is one AI, and the other AI, which is much more disruptive here, is the generative AI. You were talking about the difficulty that we have right now to know if one musical asset is created by AI or not. This is very difficult, and it also affects everything. Why? Because with generative, the point that we have is that those songs that are created automatically with AI are not protected. So then we are probably going to have an amount of music, and we are not going to be able, at least right now, to differentiate what's protected and what's not protected, and they are going to be together in a whole thing. And this is a big difference because this is something that we had never had before. We have, as you mentioned, we have had many changes and digital. We are in a digital area, but it is not new. We have been digital in a digital area for the past 20 years. But right now, the big difference is there. We are going to try to be able to differentiate. I don't know how, because right now it's not technically possible to differentiate that we are going to have those different worlds in the same place.
So just like you, a brief introduction, otherwise will feel really weird. I'm an independent publisher, Copyright Power International, and also at the Buma Stemra Supervisory Board, and also a member of the IPDF, and that's the International Music Publishers Forum. And what they've done, not sued right away like some of our American industries or the German GEMA has sued Suno, but they have come with a declaration actually with 4 important points, bringing it towards to the AI companies. And they say, 1, honor our copyrights, of course. 2, transparency is key. What are you data mining? And indeed, that links to what you're saying. We hope that we can find out what is AI and what is not. And then also label the AI generated music. That's really important if we can do that in the future. And also have a clear distinction what is made with assistive AI and what is made with generative AI. That's really important. So we have a big challenge in the future to look forward to. And I actually have all my hope, lots of hope set on legislation, and that we're the people in the EU legislation in Brussels don't let us down. And I hear that in September the EU AI Act will slowly become into effect. I don't know, you probably know more about it, being a legal person than I am. So that's also something I'm looking forward to, that can help turn the uncertainties into more certainties in the future for our industry.
Sure. Just to add on, because you've asked us kind of come back of comparing the streaming launch, right, to how AI is being developed and being launched now. I think everyone can acknowledge that at a certain time in the music industry, streaming came out and maybe people were slow to react. Or like piracy was a big thing and people were slow to react. With AI, the industry is trying to be involved. The industry wants to have some kind of license or conversation and set up structures that work. But quite often, it's kind of what we hear from big AI companies sometimes is they haven't created a license for us yet. And it feels sometimes on our side a bit unilateral. It feels a bit one way. We're here to have a conversation, but we're obviously going to come up with some ideas, but we also need to understand your system as much as possible. We need to understand your structures. All the other commercial negotiations we do are two-way. So we're trying to do that, and we had some success as an industry. There are examples now of licensing that have taken place, and it's an interesting position because so much is currently being discussed at a legislative, legal level. But for us, we need that background legal protection to just open the door to people wanting to hear us to get this license in place. Because I understand big tech companies. They're filled with smart, well-paid, interesting people who look at the law, look at commercial opportunities, and they say, yeah, of course, we get pressure to reduce our licensing costs. And if there's ambiguity in the market, of course, we're going to take advantage of that. Of course, we're going to try and structure things in a certain kind of way. And sometimes there are different ways around that we have to react to as rights holders, using other kind of relationships, using other kind of pressures, like just good relationships with big players who we could say, you know, you love our songwriters or our artists. You want to be seen as a great example or champion of music in the industry. And, you know, there are different routes around it. So what I say is, yes, I think lessons have been learned to a degree around streaming. But we can't just sit here and say it's entirely on us to come up with everything. We need some kind of legal protection, and we also need good actors to come forward and try and get these licenses in place.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it's it's really good news if you have some relations with AI companies who actually are willing to take a license, right? And as you said, it might be understandable from their point of view to try something else first. They feel like technological disruptors. Maybe they'll try copyright exceptions first, and if that fails, they will have to resort to licensing, which is probably something that will happen sooner or later. But that also connects to transparency, as we mentioned. So quite a few times we hear from Gen AI companies who basically say that, right, but we actually don't know which exact songs were used to create this exact song. So what is your view on transparency? So do you feel that that AI companies would be willing to maybe open up their systems, see what data was used in licensing negotiations with you, or do you think that this should come from legislation instead?
Yeah, will is a big word, no? Transparency is key, that's obvious. This is something you were talking about regulation. The regulation that we have right now in Europe regarding AI, copyright is on the side, but they explicitly say that transparency is key. Why? Because without transparency, at least that's the whole wheel, no? Without transparency, we know that the generative AI generates new assets because they have learned from pre-existing assets that were created from humans. Because right now, machines cannot create on their own. They need to learn, and they learn from us. If we don't know what kind of how many songs, we assume massive trainings are better because the bigger the training is, the better the assets that they created, the better they are. We know, or we assume that they have done massive trainings, but I don't think they don't even know how massive the trainings have been. I mean, if you ask them, okay, what have you used? I don't think they really know. They know they have used a lot, and they are not going to tell you. That's why the European regulation is saying, okay, you need to tell me. The thing is that it's not easy. I don't think they are not willing to say that. In our opinion, we need to find, because we don't do, and we are huge, we are a big telco. We have also Movistar Plus. We do care a lot, and we are IP holders, but we don't do massive trainings. Or we are huge and very technological. So we are talking about companies that are much bigger than us, and they are not. We don't see that they are going to open this said black box, no. But we need then to find a way to license or to do something, because what we cannot do is to say, okay, if you don't tell me, I'm not going to use AI, because then we are going to be out of the system. So we need to find a way to make them. I don't know, transparency is key, but I don't think that they are going to tell us the whole thing. But we need to find a way, no? A way to license, to be collaborative, but both sides. If you are not going to tell me everything, okay, let's try to find a way so we can license without you telling me your whole thing, like piece by piece.
And I think you hope that by that time the data will be known.
I don't know,
So-
but we really find like the balance there, because otherwise we all are going to lose. So we need to find a way to license that functions both sides.
But like you said, do you think that they are going to offer us transparency on their own without any pressure from some legal system? I'm afraid not.
The pressure will have to be there, essentially.
Yeah.
For sure. I would just say that it's also important to find a distinction between different types of uses for AI. We actually generally don't have much of an issue with lots of uses AI in the services of different platforms for things that don't undermine the value of our music. In actual fact, there's huge examples of platforms using AI structures and systems to make their service far more impressive, and to attract more subscribers, to improve money, and then ultimately distribute more money to rights holders. Quite often, AI systems can be used for content curation, or AI systems can be used for better algorithm suggestions for how you use stuff. Things like your Spotify daily mix, things like your YouTube next video that's played to you in your list. All of this stuff can be fed in by AI, and we are supportive of that because it makes the music experience broader, more related to you sometimes, and also can hopefully drive more engagement with that service. For us, where we try and find the limitations around how we want to limit how our partners use our works, unless we have some kind of value agreed for it, is to create something that can ultimately compete or undermine the works and the efforts of the songwriters that we represent. If there is something where someone has dedicated their life work to creating music, and then suddenly a machine can spit out 1 million songs based on that work in a day, then that's an issue for us. If we are then having to compete with those 1 million songs, if that 1 million songs is then being pushed in some kind of way by the algorithms of that service to promote content, which they don't need to pay as much for. So it's really important, as we distinguish, that we're not here to be in the way of progress and technology. AI offers incredible benefits. The production process for removing repetitive tasks, we're supportive of that. We support content creation. Content promotion, not content creation. Unless it's licensed correctly, of course. But it's, again, like you said, we just have to be really careful around the parameters. We're all trying to figure this out together, and we want to continue to work with our partners to create a structure that works.
True. I think in the base, it's also all about respect for the humans. I hope that in the end the machines will respect the humans and it's fairness, for the fair usage, transparency, and a fair license. And that's actually all the music industry wants. And I hope the tech platforms are listening and they have shown some humanity and respect.
So when it comes to the fair structure, from the point of license source, if you can maybe be more concrete, how do you imagine, especially what we said in the light of AI companies saying that they don't really know, which songs have been used. So what would be, kind of a technical way to? It's incredibly difficult
at this moment, because you're right. The way these services work is they ingest so much data. You're never going to have a perfect footprint of what's happening and what's being pushed out. And we have explored those kind of structures with certain types of AI services before, and we've come and stuck our head under the hood of the car or whatever, and immediately been like, oh my God, no, that's never going to really work in a really effective way. At least not now. So there's different kinds of structures that exist out there that people are exploring. Gamer, the German Collective Society, has been trying to create some kind of collective licensing structure that focuses on inputs and then on outputs using various things. Sometimes, even when it's this rudimentary, people have been talking about buyouts, just paying very large sums of money and considering if that's just enough to get people happy. That's obviously difficult for us as a right holder, because we don't have to distribute buyout money to lots of the right holders, and then they're obviously all going to say, how is what you're paying me fair? And that is an absolutely fair question for them to ask. And right now, I don't think we're 100% sure about how you can do that with the data that's available. So that is why we're exploring these kind of structures more. Yeah, I would just say that at the moment, the biggest thing that I can give an observation as someone who is on the licensing coalface is that we have been talking about getting some kind of licenses in place for a long, long time. And we were ghosted for quite a lot of the time. We were ignored for quite a lot of the time until genuine regulatory change started to come through of things like the EU AI Act, started to just bring people to the table to be like, we don't think we're using your rights in some way, but maybe down the line we could be. So maybe down the line we need some kind of protection just in case this all falls back on us. And we've had constructive conversations. We work with partners for different kinds of trials on different kinds of things. So all I would really flag is that Edith is making a really great point, which is regulation has actually been incredibly helpful for us to start some kind of commercial discussion. Just give us the backbone and we can let the market do its thing afterwards. And I think that just really needs to be repeated right now at a time where the world is moving in an anti-regulation direction. You've got various people around the world, different kind of political movements, kind of promoting growth and throwing things out the window. And we just have to be really cautious as a creative industry that we don't give the keys away to our cultural heritage as part of a current political direction.
Yeah. Following your question, we had an attempt from the Ministry of Culture in Spain. They had an attempt of regulation of collective licensing. It was focused in those massive trainings. No, it was a way. Okay, I give you a possibility, so those that are making massive trainings, they can somehow have a an amplified license.
I think what you aim is it's extended collective license.
Extended collective license, and the problem was that they tried. It was just an attempt, and they had two extremes were extremely against those. Ones for sure were the ones that are making these massive trainings. The tech companies, they were against this regulation because they are trying to apply an exemption. And if you have a regulation, say that you have a possibility to pay a license, okay, we prefer not to have that. It's like, and then we can say, okay, it's very difficult to license. We don't have any mechanism. So they were extremely against that. And then on the other hand, the ones that were extremely against this regulation were the traditional authors. For example, script writers, because what they want is that they want the artificial intelligence to be prohibited. So if the regulation is there, they say, okay, then we are saying that we accept that AI, generative AI, is something that we can use and that they can train. So we don't want this to be there. So again, it was like the two big collectives were extremely against. So with something, the situation is complicated because it's not easy to find the way.
Absolutely. Just a technical note. I saw that some of you might have questions. We'll take the last 15 minutes for questions and answers. So please remember your questions, and then we will take them later. These are extremely valid points that who was worried the most are actually authors, right holders. But then the question is, how do you balance that from right holders' point of view? If you have obviously Gen AI, and probably this proposal was aimed at basically facilitating licensing for them,
For them, yeah.
right? Because for them, it will be easier to get everything at one point and, not having to be worried which exact works have been used. But then on the other hand, what you have seen in regulation, especially in EU legislation, is that it's the right holders who should have freedom to decide whether, when, how their rights will be used and licensed. So probably finding this balance is even harder with respect to artificial intelligence. So what is your view on that? So what can we kind of put on the scale on the right holder side?
On the scale on the right holder side, well, it's of course. I'm having a blackout, I think.
I can
pick it up.
clear if you want to come in afterwards, which is just that so much is said about how hard it is to get licenses in place. But a lot of the big players, they already do this. Like the whole structure works for licensing of different kind of streaming services, was licensing of UGC. And, while sometimes I can complain about how crazily complicated publishing rights licensing is, you're talking about the same minds that have created LLM models that can do incredible things. Like they can hire consultants, they have the resources, they know the kinds of people who can get this stuff done. A lot of these companies have those relationships already. And if they don't, we're here and we're very welcome to start any kind of relationship with you right now. So I don't always buy the idea that regulators or legislative bodies need to create simple one-stop shop solutions that undervalue the exclusive rights of rights holders just so that there can be an easy access point for certain AI companies that happen to have a lot of clout.
Yeah, I think they should not hide behind the fact that it's also complicated. It can be as complicated as you want. And I think the big tech companies can have it really uncomplicated by having like one collective simple license for all their usages, perhaps depending on a percentage of their income streams. And then the other big challenge is, of course, the data, which music is being used. So the CMOs can do a proper distribution of the rights that remain for the right holders. So, and of course, it's a very a challenging time for the right holders and a lot of uncertainties, and they don't know where it's going, and only the future can tell us that. And we're all working hard to get the right legislation in place, and hopefully they will the tech platforms will cooperate and also see that a license is the easiest way out, I think, for everything. And instead of spending all that money in law firms and lawyers trying to fight the ultimate license they're heading for in the end, probably anyway, maybe it would be nice that we do it different than in the streaming ages and in the streaming era, and sit together and talk and collaborate.
I think one of the big problems that we have here is how the technology works, because we have a lot of authors that in our Spinning, what they are asking is that they don't want their works to be trained with those AIs. The problem is that the works have already been used. So we cannot extract those works and say, okay, not anymore. Okay, maybe in the future they are not going to be used for training, but they have already been used. So we have to find a way to solve these problems, because when you understand how the technology works, then you understand that what they are requesting is not possible. But if they don't understand, sometimes we have faced many situations where the authors, where they stand is just saying, okay, I don't want to hear about AI. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want any license. I don't want anything, because what I don't want is my work to be used. If they don't try to understand how it works, we are not going to find a way, because I agree with you, licensing is not very difficult. The problem is those kind of artists, which are a lot of them, that they don't understand where we are. They think that it's like in the past when we talk about digital. So you can decide, okay, I don't want my work to be in the streaming world, or I want right now. They don't have the chance to decide because the training has already been done, so they don't have anything to do there. So unless we make an effort to make them understand where we are, I don't think it's not going to be possible to find a solution, at least an easy solution here in Europe, where European regulation, the focus of European regulation is the author. It's not like in the US. The US, here the problems are the same, but the solutions are not going to be the same because the US, they are more focused in the industry, are on more industry focused. Here in Europe, in the center of everything on all regulation is the author. So they need to have a voice. But the problem is that the voice that they are having right now sometimes is not where the technology is, and this is something that we cannot change. So that is the main problem that we are facing right now. Answering to your question.
And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think actually Clara's completely right. And I also just want to at first as well, could here just acknowledge a bit of empathy as well to the technology companies that we have partnerships. I appreciate there's not a strong voice here on this panel, so it can feel a little bit one-sided. And I do also recognize that, there is more that as a creative community or representatives of a creative community we can do to educate and get people comfortable with an obvious direction that the world is going in, while also balancing the need to protect our rights through some kind of value generation for the use and what we would say the reproduction in forms of training, which is currently a point of legal discussion. So it's something we've seen many times before. I could tell you that in our licenses with UGC sectors, we still have rock bands from the 70s who refuse to have their rights included because they don't really trust UGC. And that's a ongoing discussion that we have with those rock bands and their representatives to be like, come on, just go on TikTok, it's fine. And it's a slow process. And no doubt we're going to have a new form of exploitation more and more, which is more kind of generative AI. And you're going to have some some songwriters who are fundamentally against it because of how they believe in it. And that will be a fun thing for publishers like us to manage that relationship on the one side. We're also trying to work with our technology partners to create really exciting new things for appropriate value. So, you're always going to have naysayers. And I think really the message I really want to convey from this is that we're not here to be naysayers to be against AI. We're here to be naysayers against AI that doesn't respect copyright in an appropriate way that is agreed between us.
So just to connect to that, so when you mentioned training and also how it works from a technological side, because I think it's also important for everyone in the value chain to understand what was happening on the technological side, right? So would you say that maybe actually policymakers and legislators should reconsider the stance, as it currently seems that the preferred way in the EU legislation or in the recent UK copyright and AI consultation, the preferred way seems to be the opt-out regime or the possibility to opt out from training. But as you said, Clara, it's actually, how do you do that from the technical point of view? So do you detrain AI or
Cannot detrain.
do you
retrain? With the tools that we have right now, you cannot detrain. You can stop training with this asset, but the generative AI that has been created has already been trained. And so this is a possibility that it's there, it's in the regulation, but the thing is that it's not technically possible to apply this. That's the big thing that we have. And following your question regarding regulation, I'm not a fan of regulation. I mean, we have regulation, we need regulation, but we already have a lot of regulation. So what we need right now is to understand what we have, because if we push too much to continue regulation, what we are going to have is a nightmare, because the technology is going so fast. And as you know, European regulation, we are 27 countries. And because we are a unity, because of the regulation, of course, but every country had his own society, his own way of consuming, of creating. And if we need to have all the opinions and to regulate, by that time, we are going to be far away from the problems that we will be going to be facing at that point. So in my opinion, the regulation is there. What we need to find is this kind of conversation. I think they are crucial because everybody needs to understand that this affects, we were talking about the value chain, that's critical. Everybody needs to understand their role in the value chain because you need to put there like in the table, what's your situation, what are your needs, what is technically possible, taking everything in the account, and then let's try to find a solution because what we all want is music to continue to be there, to be used. We think that technology can be used and developed without infringing copyrights. This is something that I think it's something that we are sometimes we have heard. No, if you see the news and things, they are always telling. Well, not always, but you can hear some voices saying that if you want to make the technology advance to go forward, you need to vulnerate copyrights. No, it's like okay, no, it's like something that we have, but it's like a collateral damage that we need to have in order to advance. This is not real. The thing is that
what would the ideal solution be?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be there. I'll be here. But no, the thing is that the solution, we don't know the solution, but we need to find the solution, the actual solution. You can, in your mind, you can have like the idea solution that you want to be there. But the thing is that technology is what it is. We have what we have, and we cannot invent something that in our mind, opt out. Great, opt out. But the thing is that it's not technically possible right now with the tools that we have. So for me, well, for us, why are we having this conversation if this is technologically not possible? We are like losing time. So let's try with the things that we have. At least we can, I don't know, try to make some licensing or something that works for us for the situation that we have right now in 6 months. Unless in the following 6 months, in the following months, we can, okay, let's try to sit again together and see where we are, and maybe is another possibility there.
So you suggest we should sit down and talk, and
Or all the value,
have the whole value chain.
yeah,
the licenses.
and not so much. Fights are natural and they are good, but the thing is that what we are seeing right now is that the debate is going like in this way. No, the authors here, the technological part here. In our opinion, that, and we are in both sides. We are a very big company, IP rights holder in Spain, one of the top 3, but we are technological, as you know. So the thing is that what we are seeing is that we need to put everything together and try to be more like, okay, I know it's not ideal for you. I know it's not ideal for you, but we need to try to find a solution in the reality that we have right now, which is not the ideal. The digital world we know, but to live in a new utopia.
So not wait for legislation. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
and try.
that's what I'm saying.
Well, ideal world too, if possible.
But the problems are here. The situations are here, and if we wait too much, the problems are going to be so big that we're.
I would just say on that, and I think it's a really fair point, but we have tried that in the UK market. So the government agency, like the DCMS, the governmental department, had an AI kind of working group where it had representatives of different kinds of stakeholders from film and TV, from music, from AI companies. And I wasn't in the room, but I'm part of groups that sent representatives that sent people to the room. And it sounded like it was just chaos. It was like chaos for like 3 attempts. And then everyone just decided this was pointless and stepped away because the gaps were really big. The lack of legal position was unclear. That's not to say that at some point it can't work, but
it should.
It should, but people are still trying to start themselves out. That's like one route. And maybe, maybe British people are just more chaotic. That could also be proven. I think the thing about the text and data mining exemption or the exceptions, and very quickly, it's like a high level thing. This is where there is now like justifications under EU laws that you can actually scrape things on the internet, potentially even for training your model, justified for commercial purposes, as long as the rights holder hasn't reserved their rights through some way. what does reserve your rights mean? That's a great question. We went to the European Commission through a music publishers representation board and said, how do you reserve their rights? And they were like, we don't really know yet. We're still figuring that out. So we came up with this website called Rights in AI through the ICMP, which is like the global trade body. And they were like, yeah, that's as good as anything. Great. And now that's used as an example. I wish I could tell you that was the end of the story, but the truth is there are still so many issues with that. There's no retroactive application of a reservation of rights. Like you've already said, things are trained and then it's done. Also, from a technical location standpoint, you're basically putting something up on your website or website that an AI web crawler kind of has to find. Whereas they're probably not wasting time looking at our websites. They're going on YouTube. They're going on places where they can pull vast sums of like data in contravention of the terms and conditions of YouTube, admittedly, but they're doing it in their own kind of structures. So technically, there are all kinds of issues here. And I remember I went to see a panel at the start of the year, and they had this guy at the beginning of it. It was talking about rights reservation, and he said, rights reservation is like the mafia coming to your store and saying, it'd be a shame if something was to happen to your store. And I laughed and I thought about it and I was like, actually, that's not completely right. For me, rights of reservation is more like you have to set up your store in a world where the mafia exists and you just put a poster on the front of your store that says, please no racketeering from the mafia. And then you just close your eyes and hope for the best. And that's not a way to build a structure. I don't think any of the people here would like to build a business that way either. So there's still a lot of discussion to be had, and hopefully we can find commercial solutions to bridge that gap.
All right. So I think perhaps one of the main takeaways from here is that technology can grow and should grow, but it can do so without copyright infringement. And I think it's time to take questions now. So I see some hands, one there, one here, third, fourth, or you can take it in any orders you prefer.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Ledove regarding the work you're doing with some IA software developers about how they can license the works that you manage and how us as users can know which softwares are making fair trade with the copyrighted work that they use.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry. An example for that is that Mr. Ed Newton Rex, the developer of Stable Audio, he said in a conference that they pay and they defend the rights of the copyright holders, for example.
It's a really good example, and it's a really relevant question. Like I said at the beginning, we're trying to structure our licenses in a way that vast sums of AI content is excluded when we're calculating how much our music represents of the total value to that service. So having any kind of identification of AI is key, but it's super complicated and it's really, really hard to do. And that's before you even think about people who want to identify their music as AI, because there's different levels to it. Not only are you then asking these tech companies to be able to create some kind of software or be able to access some kind of solution that can comprehensively identify an AI product, which I don't think to a degree right now, I've not heard of something that can perfectly do that. If any of you guys are working on that and you're about to sell it, then congratulations for your future millions, but it hasn't happened yet. And two, then there's another level of people can still create a copyrightable musical works using AI as part of the work. We have this whole other argument about, if you're creating a new copyrighted work, but you get your drum beat from an AI solution, but then you're singing over the top and you're creating some other kind of new melody as well. How much AI means it's an AI work? No one really knows. And that's scary for me as someone who represents songwriters and composers, because you could have basically songwriters and composers supplanted in some way and then have people recording new versions of AI songs, and it'd be very difficult to identify. So it's really important. I wish we were there already. It's going to be an ongoing conversation. And that's as much as we have right now.
Adding to what you're saying about defining the music and what's AI, which part is AI and which is not. I heard that about 10% now of the songs generated is fully AI, and Buma Stemra has started with the facility that you can register your song and also inform them how much of that part of which role is generated with AI and what's your part. Just to try and get a grip and try and get the data and more knowledge of how it's being used and looking at the future and to see how that will be distributed usages of that salt.
Thank you. There's another question for you.
Thanks very much. Hi there. Oh, hello there. My name is Martin Sutton. I work for the Mafia and I'm deeply offended by the... So I've got 32 years background as a songwriter producer. So I've got a couple of thousand songs in my catalogue. We also run a songwriting academy and a sync agency as well. My academy and me, we were approached by a tech company, some of whom had worked on the early AI models and were suddenly seeing that the effect that it had on music. And they came to us with a solution, which was a digital embed in both audio but also video content, because we've got about 600 hours of video content. And so we had this discussion about, okay, so, what's going to happen? They said, okay, we can protect your work. The long and the short of it was that there would be a rent, essentially, of this embed, if you will. So it was kind of like a tax on fear, really. So are you aware of any kind of technology that can be embedded in the audio? So first of all, you can either do the opt-out or you can benefit from it. So you can actually say, okay, well, this has been used X amount of times by an AI engine, and therefore there's going to be a royalty payable for that. Are any of you aware of any of this kind of technology?
No. I don't know the name. I can look it up and share it with you later. I read about some guy in the US who's really far in the technology and analyzing it. But I think lots of tech companies are aiming for that now. But I haven't heard about the tech, facility who's able to fully do that at the moment.
Right. And on my side, there are solutions that different people are developing, and they're, at Warner Music Group, we speak to a specific team that we have that overlooks different AI partnerships and different AI solutions. Nothing has come through just yet as like a clear slam dunk. There are like people putting in certain kind of things, but it's to people who want to be bad actors. It's like people will be able to create new solutions that work around watermarks, and work around kind of digital fingerprints to get in there, which, to be fair, if you are relying on a service provider to tell you that they protected your works in some way, you're probably not at the same time deeply scouring the web to constantly make sure that they're 100% doing what they say they're doing. Yeah. They're getting their payment from you, and then you don't have full reporting or transparency about the efficacy of that service that they're providing to you. So I don't think we've seen anything yet that closes that loop. And I would love to be surprised by that, and I would love to have someone. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
There was one question, and the gentleman in the back, yes, had his hand up for a while.
Yeah. Thank you.
Another one.
That's a question for Camille again. Actually, you partially answered my question just before. So you said we right now currently unable to distinguish if a song is generated by AI or not. But well, my question is, I heard about this company called Amplify, which is for people who doesn't know, Amplify, it's a French spin-off from the very famous French music tech research lab IRCAM, based in Paris. And well, they launched 1 year ago a tool based on signal only, predicting, well, at least that's what they say, predicting if a song is Gen AI or not, or I think it's not binary. It's a level of probability that it's AI generated or not. So my question is, have you tried this tool or similar tools? And well, I guess you did, but why is it so bad? Because they pretend to be very good, actually.
Sure. And I'm not I'm going to put my hands up immediately and say I'm not across so many things that I've personally tried Amplify. I am aware of Amplify, and similar to this gentleman's question, there's so many solutions out there that we do have a team that are checking. I think a key point that we need to flag here is that when it comes to like a licensing context, even getting an understanding of what is likely to be an AI work is half of the conversation. That is our view of what we have. And we then have to take that to an AI company and say, we think you generated this, if we can even realize that's where that music came from. And we think there should be some kind of license involved, of which there can be deniability, there can be different kinds of arguments about different kinds of structures. So while there are currently, and this is a really great thing, solutions being developed as there should be, again, I'm not aware of anything being a complete slam dunk at this stage. And there will still be difficulties where, for example, if we have an agreement with Spotify and we say to them, oh, you need to carve out anything with AI, they're going to, if we just turn up with a big folder of here are all the AI works on your platform, they're not just going to be like, great, we believe you, we're going to remove them all. They have to have their own process. They have to have their own test. They have to have their own validation process. So it's about trying to then align on criteria that everyone can agree on to identify. And that's just going to be a very long process. So I know I ended up going down a different avenue than saying, have I tried Amplified? I haven't tried Amplified, but it's, I think, one of a series of solutions that we're very interested in as an industry. And it will need to be part of a kind of collective movement to a collective acknowledgement of how effective AI identification systems are.
Thank you.
Hi, hello. Yeah, I have a question for Camille and Edith. Have you ever calculated the potential loss of market share that you can have because of AI song consumption? Because yeah, maybe it might be quite high because if the AI songs are super good. So
I think there was a report of CSEC stating that about 25%, I think.
25.
Yeah,
Okay.
will be lost. I don't know if you have any.
Sure. I mean, I haven't got a particular thing in my mind. I always think about how it was really huge news a few years ago about 100,000 tracks being uploaded to Spotify every day. And everyone loved that number. It's a nice, easy number to roll around and you could hear about it. And that was even before people were expecting loads of uploads because of AI. That was just how many people were making music. And you compare that to like, I think times in the 80s or 90s where like commercially released music at a territory that was like 100,000 tracks over a year. And now look at that, 100,000 tracks a day. That can turn into millions potentially because people just have the capacity to create and upload. In my mind, honestly, I think I'm hopeful that there will still always be an element of human-to-human connection in terms of people appreciate a story of an artist and appreciate a story of a songwriter that they can relate to. That's not to say that those songwriters and artists will use more and more AI tools in the background and could just be used as a label for something. I'm not naive enough to think that that might not happen. But, you know, maybe eventually there will need to be new structures around commercial licensing that identify AI and remove it from a calculation of market share. Or you've had other things like user-centric models where your subscription fee for a service goes exactly to the music that you listen to. And if that's the case, then if you just want to listen to AI music, then great, the AI people producers will get it. But if you actually want to listen to other kind of artists that are more human, that you kind of are more human, that you identify with, then all of your license fee will go to, all of your subscription fee will go towards those artists and the people who represent those artists. So there are options, there are levers to play with, but you know, the potential for AI is infinite. I think that's the whole point.
and even so, you are not against.
I think as long as we can create a structure that works, then I'm not against. Not least because ultimately a label and publisher is basically a marketing company. We bring in certain kinds of music and we tell you to listen to our music the most because it's the best. And that happens if we are marketing against 100,000 songs or 10 million songs.
I'll fire one out. We've been talking about the AI training companies, and you kind of have mentioned DSP's position about it, right? And one of our big fears is, the dilution of the non-copyrighted work, of the copyrighted work by the non-copyrighted work created by AI. We've seen companies like Deezer making statements that they actually are identifying or are able to identify AI-generated content, and they are pushing it back or not counting it in the pool of copyrights. And my question was like, what's your experience with the DSPs, which obviously are a key part of the equation, because if they prevent AI-generated content to dilute the pool for the copyrights, then it's a massive ally. If they don't, it's a massive enemy. So I was wondering what's the point on that from your perspective. But it is, and Clara and everyone.
What I know from Spotify, what I've been told is that they have said that they pay about 70% of their revenues to copyrighted music. So that means the other 30 is AI. And I hope that stays that way. That's what I know. But of course, that's a big problem, and the further dilution of the copyright streams, and that will lose the income.
Sure. I don't know if it's 70 to copyright music and 30 to AI. I think it's more like 30 to Spotify. But I don't.
Yeah, of the revenues for of the music. Yeah,
That just kind of terrified.
well, no, maybe I thought it was good because it means that at least they save a percentage for the copyrighted music. That's how I understood it. Instead of that, it all is diluted.
Yeah. But no, I guess the only other thing I'd say is different for every partner. We have different kinds of leaning in. We've obviously raised it with everyone, and they've raised it with us. We are sympathetic to how difficult it is to identify it. Like, it's very easy to say, you have to do this. How would we police that when they are obviously doing their own thinking about it? They honestly have good relationships with us. We have really long-standing relationships with a lot of the big tech companies who have music streaming services, UGC services. But at the same time, they have different arms who want to release LLM models and do various other things. And so all I would say is that right now we have very much kind of respected each other's space of hearing each other out, and us acknowledging how much they legally have to do right now and trying to get protections in around other things. Like I said earlier on the panel, I have no issue with AI to improve the service for what it is as distribution of existing human-made content curation and promotion. I think it's pretty effective. And then finally, sometimes I would also say we've had some partnerships that have actually been really great, because sometimes the big tech companies are like, oh, we've heard of other players coming in and they are doing something that we think we could be earning money for. And so maybe give us a deal and we'll blow them out of the water. And, great competition in action. So it's very varied with everyone. I'm not going to name any names, but it's, there's different. Sure.
And we say maybe in the end, because there's so much music being brought out and released, I think 700,000 tracks a week. And a lot of that is also, rubbish. So maybe in the end, the live industry will also benefit, that the people will start, looking for the real music and the real thing again, and appreciating the real artists.
Hi, could I just make a follow-up question on that? And first,
Just the last one.
sorry, yeah, thank you all for your considerations. And to follow the question, and also Camille's great comment on competition, I'm a licensing person, so I tend to be in the middle of these conversations, trying to translate and broker the difference. And I'd welcome much more ease of licensing for new entrants so we're not just talking about big tech. But one of those innovators that I've been working with, actually too, are looking at the way that royalties are actually calculated, specific to the listen time and engagement, which has been talked about before, but not actually implemented. And this is actually implementing royalties based on a particular subscriber's listen to a particular artist. So given the conversation about dilution, is this another thing that is challenging the pro rata model of royalty allocation?
I'll just quickly jump in because I know we're near time. I could probably hit this one relatively quickly. I mean, that's true that could be an option. That user-generated, sorry, not user-generated, user-centric model that we talked about before is an option to really focus on what people are listening to, and a movement to watch time compared to play. So just for everyone's understanding, at the moment it's typically done on, if you play something for 30 seconds, that's a play. And then all the plays are totted up and then it's divided based on how many plays. So is that unfair for, say, classical music, where you could have an 18-minute song and then they get one play, compared to like a TikTok, like viral 40-second video that gets a play every time it just hits 30 seconds. And that's a really relevant question that's considered. One of the things that we always hear and have to know is that because we are getting a fee pot of money that is from identified to go to rights holders and has to be divided across various rights holders, it would be very difficult for the market to move out of step. So if you're going to move from a play to a watch time model, typically you need everyone to be on play as a watch time, because if you're calculating your pro rata share, it normally have to be calculated equally for everyone so that you can access, and I'm getting very technical here, sorry, you can access other kinds of value that are left over, like residual values or values for unclaimed works or values for things. Basically, being aligned allows you to access a greater pool of value. So to summarize it, there are options on the table, there always are, and maybe they will become more needed as AI becomes a bigger part of everyone's lives. But the market would need to move as one to not lose certain other areas of value. And that sounds very cryptic, and I'm sorry, but that's how it is.
Right. Unfortunately, 1 hour is way too short to discuss these really complex issues. But I think that even without a crystal ball, we managed quite well to somehow predict or chart what the future holds for digital licensing. So thank you, Clara, thank you, Edith, and thank you, Kamil, and thank you all of you for joining us.